This brief video is a quick introduction to the Jupyter Lab interface that we will be using for the rest of this course. At this point, I hope you have Python installed on your machine, whether through Anaconda or if you have directly downloaded that from python.org and installed Jupyter separately. There are lots of instructions on the web that you can find for your specific machine, depending on whether you're using a Mac, some flavor of Linux, or a Windows machine, which is what I use. The interface we will be using will be Jupyter Lab, which is a more modern interface than the traditional Jupyter notebook. Assuming you have Anaconda, the easiest way to launch Jupyter Lab is to go to the Anaconda prompt in your program's menu and just type Jupyter Lab. If you have installed Python and Jupyter separately, you have to do the same thing, but on the command prompt, which is what I'm going to do next. At this point, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And I will go to command prompt and I will type in Jupyter Lab. And this should start Jupyter Lab for me. It will launch a browser and you will see the Jupyter Lab interface this way. Now, it is possible that you might like to just launch Jupyter Notebook using your Anaconda icons that were installed when you set up Anaconda. In that case, what you will find is that here in the URL, instead of lab, it will say tree. And you will have something that looks like this. If this is what you're getting, then in order to get to the Jupyter Lab interface, all you have to do is to override the tree in the browser window with lab, and it will take you to Jupyter Lab. Once you are in Jupyter Lab, you can start a new Python notebook by clicking the Python 3 notebook icon here, and here you go. You have a brand new notebook, and we can see that it works. What you see here, this is called a cell, and I can type a Python command in here. But instead of typing a Python command, I'm just going to type, say, 2 + 3, and I'll press Shift Enter or Control Enter to see what the result is, and I get the answer as 5. So when I'm in a cell, if I press Shift Enter, it executes the cell and it advances me to the next cell. If there isn't a next cell, it will create a new blank cell for you. If you press Control Enter, then it will execute the cell, but you will stay in the same cell. The cell that is currently active, that will normally have a blue bar or a line next to it, and that's how you know where you are. Also, cells are of two major types. They are code cells or they are markdown cells. So this one is a code cell. Code cell in the sense Jupyter expects us to type Python code in here. The way we know that this is a code cell is because I see this, the input, the number 3 here, and I can also see that this is a cell type code. And I can change it to the other code type, which is also very interesting, is markdown. And I'm just going to talk about what a markdown cell is. So I'll do that in the next. So imagine I need to type in some text. I just need to explain what I'm trying to do. So I will type here, hi there, I'm trying to see what 2 + 5 is. Now, if I run this as a code cell, I will get an error because the machine is expecting code, but it gets some text. So what I have to do is I have to change the cell type to markdown. And now I will see regular text. I can format this text. I can make things bold by putting them between 2 asterisk signs. And when I run this, you will see that this becomes bold. I can also put a heading by putting the hash sign here, and I can call it introduction, for example. And my first line becomes an introduction. In the same way, I can have bulleted text. So I can say this is my first bullet, this is my second bullet, and so on. So I can actually do this. When I have a cell, I can drag it once my cursor changes to this shape. I can drag it and I can move it up. What Markdown allows us to do is to mix text and code together, which means we can explain exactly what the code is going to do, so someone who's reading it can benefit from what is called reproducible research, which means code is not separate, it is part of the explanations and the code, and we will be using Markdown a great deal throughout the course because all the notebooks that I will share with you will have significant amounts of Markdown that explain what's happening in the different cells. Sometimes you don't want a new Markdown cell. You can just create a comment line by putting the hash symbol in a code cell, and you can say this is a comment. And during execution, this is left out. This is not something that the machine considers or executes on. I can switch between code and Markdown, as I mentioned, using this. If I have done 2 plus 3 and I want to do this again, maybe I want to do 2 plus 7, I can duplicate the cell by clicking this little plus icon here, and it duplicates the cell. And now this one, I can change it to 2 plus 5 and see that the answer is 7. I can insert a blank cell above or below using these icons. As you can see, it puts a new blank cell above and below. Also, I can move a particular cell up just like I showed you by dragging it, but I can also do that using these arrow keys here. So I can move this up. So my 2 plus 5 now moves up above 2 plus 3. I can move it further up, and now it becomes the first cell. So I can do this as well. However, having to look for these icons and having to click to create a new blank cell, and this can become very tiring very quickly. So there's a whole range of keyboard shortcuts that you can use to insert blank cells, to move and move cells and do all the same things that I just showed you. And if you go to settings and go to advanced settings editor and click on keyboard shortcuts here, and I can go down to notebook and I can see all of the keyboard shortcuts that I can use. So let me actually show you some of the more useful ones. So if I need to use a shortcut, I have to make sure that I am in what is called the command mode. Right now, since my cursor is blinking inside a cell and the cell is white in color, this means I'm in edit mode. If I use the keyboard, it will start typing the characters here. When I press escape, I get out of the edit mode and now I'm in command mode. A will insert a cell above my current cell. B will insert a new cell below my current cell. At the same time, pressing Y will convert the cell into a code cell, and pressing M will convert it into a markdown cell. So for example, if I want to convert this cell to a markdown cell, I press M and this becomes a markdown cell. When I run this cell, then it looks like this. It doesn't actually execute. If I want to convert this back into a code cell, I press Y and this becomes a code cell again. Another thing I wanted to mention was that all notebook files that we create this way, they have the extension by default. They have the extension .ipynb. What you see on the left here, this is the file system. This is my default directory where I started my Python instance, and I can see that at any time by typing pwd in a code cell, and it shows me where I currently am, and that's what I'm looking at here. The one other thing I wanted to show you was here, by clicking on this, I get to see the file view, but when I double click this again, it hides the file view and it gives me more space for typing my code. Similarly, another useful thing here is the table of contents, which is this icon here. And by clicking here, I actually get to see all the headings I have inserted using markers. This becomes much more useful when I have a larger file with lots of information in it. So for example, if I look at my file for exploratory data analysis, which is what we are going to cover next, you will find that there is a lot of markdown text here which explains how things work. So let us look at the table of contents for this particular file, and you will see that everything is very nicely organized. How what EDA is, uh, how you use EDA using Python, what is split apply combine, what is pandas profiling, and I can jump to any part of my notebook by clicking on the table of contents. But for this to work, it is important that I correctly have the headings, etc., marked using Markdown. So that's what I have. If you have a file and you want to save it in a different name, you can do that by going to File and saying Save Notebook As, and you can change the name of the notebook to something else. Another thing I wanted to mention was this little circle here. This actually tells you the status of your kernel, which is where all the processing happens. So this is the part I'm referring to. And when processing is happening and the machine is computing, this will be a dark black color. This will be a filled in circle. When it's empty, it means the machine is not calculating anything. And this also tells me which is the kernel I'm using. Sometimes you might have multiple kernels on your machine, and when you get to more advanced things, that might be helpful. But for the moment, we are going to ignore that. And that's all I have. And in the next section, we are going to look at, in the next lab section, we are going to look at how we use, we will actually go through the exploratory data analysis notebook. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.